Eunson here. Wonderful to see you all tuning in again. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and make sure you let me know if you can hear me talking okay and if you can hear the guitar okay. I think that those are probably the most important things, that you can hear me talk and play, considering I'm here on a live stream with you. And yeah, let me know where you're tuning in from. Always so happy to see you. Wonderful to see everyone tuning in here. I see everyone here from Sardinia, from Basque Country. Wonderful. Hi, bon dias. Wonderful to see you. France, Los Angeles, Thailand, Mexico. Wonderful to see you. I'll turn the voice up a little bit, as much as I can. Let me see what I can do here. Might be full on the voice. Let's see. There we go. Let me know if you can hear me a little better on the voice now. Yeah, wonderful to see where everyone's tuning in from. From Melbourne, wonderful to see you. From Kiev, lovely to see you from Kiev. Kentucky, Australia, St. Louis, Missouri, wonderful to see everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you can hear me talking a bit better now. Maybe the guitar might have been a little loud, but hey, that's what we do as guitarists, isn't it? We play a little louder than everyone else, and we'll never really be accepted for that, but that's okay. Anyway, today I'm going to talk to you about finding your own sound. And finding your own sound on guitar is a really interesting topic because it relates to finding some kind of an individual approach. And that to me is kind of oftentimes thought of as an elusive concept. How do you find your own sound and your own approach on guitar? Well, it may be simpler than you think, and I want to shed some light on that for you today. I'd like to think that I have cultivated something of an approach that you can probably recognize, and any information that I have about that, well, yeah, I want to share it with you. I think it's a really cool discussion to have. So we're going to get into it. More and more people tuning in from all around the world, which is wonderful to see. Keep on letting me know where you're tuning in from. Helsinki, wonderful to see you. Helsinki as well, fantastic. Nairobi, Kenya, wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining me, everyone. This is one of the amazing things about the time we live in. For all of the difficulties of the time we live in, one of the most remarkable things for me is that we all get to join together here on the internet from all around the world, and there's really no other time in history where we could get to do this and get to do it in the name of music, which is my favorite thing, and I always think that music joins people together. So I'm genuinely so happy to see you all here today. So yeah, we're going to talk about how to develop your own approach. Oh, and as you know, I'm right here in the US. So you know, I'm Australian, but I live in the US, so I should tell you where I am too. So yeah, we're going to talk about how to approach your own style on guitar. And before we do get into that, I should tell you that we're having a big sale at my website right now on everything, up to 50% off everything, including all of my bundle packages and online courses. You can check out my new modern soloing bundle, which covers everything from triads to triad pairs, getting the most out of the pentatonic scale, and soloing over turnarounds. It's really comprehensive, 118 pages of material, 17 video sections, and you can get a discount on that, my mini lesson bundle, how to practice bundle, and of course my albums and transcriptions. Just for you here on YouTube and my mailing list, you can get an extra 5% off with the code EXTRA5. And that'll be ending tonight. We won't be doing a sale in a while, so if you would like to check this out, now would be the time, because we're not going to do this again for some time. So make sure to check it out at my website, up to 50% off everything, extra 5% off with the code EXTRA5. So let's get into it. The fundamental paradox of finding your own sound on guitar is that you already have your own sound. So when I'm playing and my left hand hits the guitar neck, I pick the string with my right hand. Obviously this is reverse if you're a left-hander, but for me I'm a right-hander on guitar. As soon as I put the left hand down on the guitar neck and play a note, that's how I sound. That's the fundamental paradox of finding your own sound, is that you do already have your own sound, whether you like it or not. It's simply, I think, coming to terms with how you sound. And when I say coming to terms with it, you know, when we're trying to develop a style, sometimes we can listen back to ourselves and find it to be a bit cringy and think, oh gee, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. That is always going to happen. I thought that I was going to come to a point in my life where I'd think, oh gee, I'm just going to be playing great all the time. Turns out that's not true. So I think it's a matter of coming to terms with how you sound, and then trying to build on your innate sound by thinking of some original ideas that are essentially yours and not lifted directly from someone else on guitar. So I think that's really important. Think of some ideas that are your own and not lifted from someone else directly. So let me give you an example. When I was about 16 and I was first working professionally for about a year at that point in clubs, playing jazz gigs and stuff like that, I could do a pretty good Pat Metheny impression. I could do some John Scofield lines, and I had a little Boss chorus box which I tried to rip him off by sounding like him. And I could sort of rip off some George Benson lines as well. And I could make it sound okay, if not pretty good on some occasions. And I certainly think there's a novelty factor of when you're 16, you know, people say, oh wow, you know, he sounds like these people. Okay, that's good. In those days, I'd record every gig on a mini disc recorder at that point in time, and I'd find myself dissatisfied with my own playing because I'd sort of think gee, this sounds fine, but I sound like a weak version of about 5 other people. I had a degree of fluency on the instrument, getting lines together, but it still wasn't very coherent because I was sort of just mimicking other people. And it didn't sound authentic. Now, why didn't it sound authentic? Because I think subconsciously I recognized that I did have my own sound by nature of my hands on the guitar neck. Whether I like it or not, that's how my hands are going to sound on the guitar neck. So really what you've got to do is try and capitalize on that, I suppose, by thinking of some original ideas and building on your playing style from there. So my first suggestion to you for truly developing your own style on guitar is recording yourself playing, and recording yourself playing a lot. Now, this can include recording practice sessions, just when you're sitting at home practicing, rehearsals, live shows. Way back when I had to use a mini disc recorder, but you can really just do this with your phone these days. And you may sort of cringe a little bit at your own playing. I know I cringed listening back to my own playing at that time, but it will provide you with a lot of answers in terms of where to take your playing stylistically. Recording yourself, listening back to it, perhaps feeling a bit uneasy about the bits you don't like, but that will provide answers to where you can build on your playing from there on. So that was really useful for me. You'll be able to pick out the ideas you like and weed out the ones you don't like and build from there. So say I'm playing along on some sort of, let's just say a 1-chord vamp. Let's say I play something that I feel like I might have stolen from someone else. Let's say I took that from John Scofield or John Abercrombie or something like that. I can say, all right, sounds really nice, but I overtly took that from someone else and I'm trying to find my own way. So therefore you've got to think, okay, maybe this is in my muscle memory at this point, but I'm going to try and avoid playing that because Scofield found his own way. I want to find my own way. And I think that's really important. So yeah, and by the way, if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to jump into the comments section and let's talk about it more. TJ, you said you've got to hear where you want to be and chase it. And don't get discouraged when you first hear yourself. It can be brutal. Exactly right. I couldn't agree more. So yeah, if you have any more questions or comments or thoughts, please jump in the chat and let's talk about this. This is just my perspective and I'd love to hear yours as well. The next piece of advice that I could give you in terms of finding your own sound on the guitar is a really important one. And it's one that I worry that people are starting to lose sight of a little bit these days. And that is that you don't be afraid to try things. Make sure that you try things. Now, perhaps that sounds like a sort of, benign comment, but really, look, when I say try things, I mean, I hear a lot of guitarists playing it safe. And sort of playing things that have been done many times. I've heard this in the jazz world, heard it in any style of music, really. And that's fine, but to find a playing style that is recognizably you're going to have to try some ideas that are out of your comfort zone. So for example, if you like playing stuff typically that's sort of very linear and okay, that's some material that I like to play. But what if you wanted to go beyond that? Well, that's the time where perhaps you really like the way that someone like Jeff Beck, for example, might have bent a note or something like that and really made it sing. that's the moment where you've got to think, gee, that's not really in my vocabulary, and stylistically it's out of left field for what I usually like to do. But what if I took a little bit of that? What if I took just a little bit of that thing that someone else did and try to make it my own and start throwing in some kind of bend? This is purely an example, of course, but some kind of little bend. So where can I take something that someone else might have played and make it my own? And this is where I really think it's a matter of trying things. Perhaps it won't work. Perhaps it won't meld with your style terribly well. But I think it's absolutely worth a try. So I personally love hearing it when people try things and take chances, because ultimately music is a creative medium. You know, we can get very easily locked into opening up whatever door you use, Logic, whatever it is, and think, oh gee, I want to record the perfect solo or something like that. Well, the perfect solo is never going to exist, so that ends up being a futile pursuit anyway. But really, the magic for me is trying things and taking chances, and sometimes failing. So when you're trying to develop your own style, yeah, take it out of your comfort zone and really try to explore things that you haven't before. Anything from bends. I know bends have been slightly stigmatized with the term boomer bends of late, but I wouldn't worry about anything like that. Just bending a note has existed in many types of music for centuries now, so across many instruments. So perhaps that's what you want to try. Perhaps you want to try a harmonic concept of some kind. Anything you like. Take chances and do something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Some of the music that has ended up being my favorite music in life is music that I didn't like the sound of at first. And just the same, some of my favorite ideas that I've come up with on the guitar neck were things that I really didn't like the sound of at first either. So it's really something to think about. Take chances and really push yourself. So these would be my key pieces of advice in terms of developing your own style on the guitar neck. So let's see what's going on in the chat. So Andres Barbosa, hey, Ben, do you think the most important thing to do is to transcribe? If not, what is it? Okay, well this is another important thing on the path to developing your own way of playing. And it was actually the next thing, more or less interrelated with what I just said, that it is really important to adapt ideas from other people, but try to make them your own, you know. I think that transcription can be a way to achieve that. Take an idea from guitarist and distort it a little bit, not with distortion, or perhaps, but when I say distort it, change the notes around, work out how to make it sound good for the way that you play. I think it ends up being a bit of an easy way out to copy someone directly, but think, how can I use this to my advantage as a soloist, and how can I make it my own? That's what I would say. And transcription is a great way to get into that. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Hey Dan, your drive sound is so natural sounding and dynamic. Well, thank you very much. Can I talk about my Tech 21 drive pedal a little bit? Yeah, it's still the Tech 21 drive pedal. I have it right down here. I haven't checked the EQ of it right now, so I'm not going to turn it on. It might, be a bit too loud for the whole building right at this minute. But I think that it's just a really nice drive, natural sounding drive. One of the reasons I stuck with the Tech 21 Oxford pedal, which if you don't know, is the pedal that I use to get just a little bit of drive to fatten up my sound and give me a bit more dynamic range. The Tech 21 Oxford pedal I really liked because many times if I'm in the studio or touring, I'm unable to have my own amp with me, and I've had to use backline amplifiers. It's become really just part of the gig these days. We don't necessarily have haulage people who are hauling amps around for us. So the Tech 21 Oxford ensured that I could have more or less the same sound on any gig, and that's been an invaluable asset to me. So yeah, that's why I love it so much. Yeah, fantastic. Hey Hassan, are there any guitarists whose style you like but are not famous? Well, that oh gee, I'm trying to recall people's names here because there are so many guitarists who don't have a huge public profile, who are musicians and musical minds that I admire so much, and indeed, on topic today, have their own way of playing that you may or may not be aware of. One guitarist that I mention as many times as I possibly can is a guitarist called Travis Reuter, who is just one of my favorite guitarists. And Reuter, R-E-U-T-E-R. And Travis and I played together on an album by the trumpeter David Weiss called Wake Up Call, and that record had myself, Travis, and Nir Felder on it. And at different times. I was on most of it, and then the other guys were a sort of half, the album was split between the other two guitarists, Nir and Travis. And of course Nir is a wonderful guitarist as well, but you are probably familiar with his playing. In case you're not familiar with Travis's playing, just a wonderful musician and one of the most incredible guitarists I've heard, so I love his playing for sure. And of course, if there are any guitarists that you in the chat love that you think may not get the attention they deserve, certainly jump in and let's talk about it. And also, in case you're just tuning in, we are having up to 50% off everything at my website. It ends tonight, and you can get an extra 5% off with the code EXTRA5. You can get my modern soloing bundle, the new bundle I have out for soloing, which explains a lot about triads, triad pairs, pentatonic scales, and turnarounds, as well as my mini lesson bundle, how to practice bundle, albums and transcriptions. And yeah, please make sure to like and share this video so we can keep getting the word out about my channel. I always appreciate your support. So here's a great question from Nadir. To what extent do you think the gear matters in your own sound? Well, I have these days no shortage of great gear and wonderful guitars. So what extent, that's a great question. What extent does gear really play a part in your own original sound? There are certain pickup selection sounds that I really love, which you would have heard me doing just now. I really love, for example, certain Strat type sounds, and I can do that with this particular guitar, which is a Frank Brothers guitar made for me by the wonderful Frank Brothers Guitar Company in Toronto. And I do love the kind of Strat sounds. And certainly if you've heard my album Ace from a few years ago now, I used that sound a lot and I just loved it for how much expression I felt that I could get out of it. And I've also had, in recent times, a wonderful relationship with Ibanez Guitars, who've sent me some beautiful guitars, and I've also played Ibanez and bought plenty of Ibanez guitars in recent years, which has just been a wonderful thing for me. I've always loved playing Ibanez guitars. So I think let me put it this way. Having a great instrument is really important. I think it's important to have a very high quality instrument. And I've had no shortage of high quality instruments in the last few years. Beyond that, you do have to do the work, and you do have to have your own mind at play on the guitar neck. So I think it's a balance. You've got to have great equipment, functional equipment that plays and sounds great. I can pick up this guitar, I can pick up any of my Ibanez guitars, particularly the AM153QA, which has actually been my main guitar for about a year now. And I know that they'll play great. I think the thing about having a great playing instrument, and this is not me doing an ad or anything like that, you know, I recently did a video about one of my Ibanez guitars, and there are a few people who said, this is an ad. No, I really only talk about the gear that I use. If it came across that way, I apologize, but I only ever talk about the gear I use. And it's really important to have a guitar that you don't have to worry about, that you can just pick up and it plays great. And beyond that, yeah, you have to have your own touch, your own ideas, and consequently your own sound. So I think it's a balance. Got to have great equipment, but you've also got to have a lot going on in your own mind and in terms of the physical execution of the ideas as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So yeah, let me see. Have you ever had the opportunity to meet or play with your guitar heroes like Steve Kahn, etc.? You know what? I've been in touch with Steve Kahn for a long time. I still haven't had the pleasure of meeting Steve in person, but Steve Kahn, back in the days of MySpace, if you can remember MySpace, probably dating myself here, but I am in my early 30s. Anyway, when I was 17, I put up a trio version of the standard Alone Together on MySpace. And out of the clear blue sky, of all people, Steve Kahn emailed me and told me how much he really enjoyed my playing. And I just thought that was such a gracious thing to do, to reach out to someone I was 17 at the time, and send me a really supportive email saying how much he enjoyed my playing. And I'll always be grateful to Steve for that. And we've kept in touch over the years over email and Facebook. And I have met a number of my guitar heroes, and it's always been actually an overwhelmingly positive experience. People say don't meet your heroes. Maybe. I've met a lot of my heroes though, and it's always been very cool. I often find that the very best players have a sense of humility about them and don't see you as a threat or treat you in a kind of a nasty way. The heroes of mine that I've met have always been very gracious and kind. I think when you're dealing with the best, as I have had the fortunate many fortunate encounters of meeting some of my heroes, it's always been a really positive experience. So yeah. Let's see. So before we go any further, yeah, I just also wanted to mention, if you do have any questions about developing your own sound on guitar, that's certainly what I came here to you to talk about today. I hope that my insight has been helpful. Of course, there's no substitute for work and making sure that you can execute original ideas and just be creative on the guitar. But certainly let me know if you have any questions about that. Right, let's have one from Alexander, great question. Can you elaborate on amp, VST settings, how to achieve this organic, low distorted kind of screaming sound? Well, that's a great question. I have used a number of sort of plugins on the computer to capture my sound. I've used a number of things from Line 6 in the past. I've used Amplitude from IK Multimedia, which I think has come a long way. I think it's actually very underrated. So I think that's a great platform as well in terms of capturing sounds into the computer. I definitely have owned and cycled through a lot of amps in my time, and you know, I've still, that is still my primary way of recording my guitar in a studio setting. I'm hoping that I'll be able to record a new album this year. We'll see. And by the way, sorry to interrupt myself, say hi to Vienna Lorraine here, who's moderating for us today, helping out, doing a great job. This is a very small operation here on my channel, but always wonderful to have assistance from this very small team of mine here. So say hi to Vienna in the chat. Amps are still my way of recording the guitar in the studio. That's still my preferred way. And certainly on my album Ace a few years ago, the wonderful engineer, producer in New York, Michael Perez Cisneros, built some custom-made amps for me that were based off traditional Fender amps. Well, he didn't necessarily build them for me, but he had them in his studio, hand-built, and they really provided a beautiful organic sound. So I've been spoilt for choice in terms of guitar recording equipment, you know. So yeah, I've used a number of them, from Line 6 to the IK Multimedia stuff, which is very underrated, and a wide variety of amps that I've owned and sold over the years. And yeah, it's a wonderful journey. When I record what I hope will be my next album later this year back in the studio, I'm probably going to be using those Fender amps, you know, that Michael Perez built. I certainly hope so. We'll see if I can get it together this year, making a new album. As you know, recording is quite a feat these days, but yeah, I've got plenty of music that I'm very excited to share with you. So absolutely. Hey Rex, I have the Ibanez AM153, a very undernoticed guitar. It was great when you started talking about how good it is. Great jazz guitar, people are only now starting to appreciate it. Yeah, Rex, I agree completely. So I have been very fortunate to have a great relationship with the people at Ibanez over the last couple of years. And I received an Ibanez AM153 QA last year, and as I've said to you, I really, I'm never going to sell you stuff on my channel. I've been approached by a number of companies over the last number of years, and I've actually declined on many occasions because I have to keep some sort of, you know, ethical standing in my own mind that I only really talk about the gear that I use or like. And I started playing Ibanez guitars when I was 16. And then to have a relationship with the people at Ibanez is a real blast, you know, something that I really appreciate. So I managed to get the AM153 QA in my hands, and I recorded a song called AM FM, which I hope will end up on an album at some point. If you haven't heard this song, it's right here on my channel. And I think it was it ended up being a really cool showcase for the AM153 QA. It reminded me of a modern take on the Ibanez LR10, which was the Lee Ritenour signature model from the 80s, which was just an incredible guitar, but kind of a modern take on that, and also, of course, the original AM guitars from Ibanez in the 80s. And I really loved that, you know. There was this video I used to watch many years ago, Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin live from the record plant, and he's primarily playing the LR10 on that. And I always thought that was so cool. Definitely had an impact on me when I was first starting to play guitar. So yeah, I mean, the AM153QA from Ibanez, I think it's a beautiful instrument and very reasonably priced as well. So yeah, love it. Yeah, TJ, yeah, nothing but praise for Ibanez. Been playing this discontinued AS103 model for ages now. Yeah, I only ever talk about gear that I use, and I've used Ibanez for years, so that's why I talk about it. But that's great. Hey, Ivan. Hey there, Ben. Do you think of Jason Becker? What do you think of Jason Becker as a guitar player? Well, Jason Becker is one of the greatest guitar players of all time, as far as I'm concerned. But I was, when I was younger, a bit of a jazz purist, so my head wasn't in the realm of knowing about someone like Jason Becker, but I discovered him much later. I had this sort of epiphany when I was about 18, when I got into Van Halen and I got into Yngwie Malmsteen and people who were outside of the jazz world, and I thought, why haven't I been listening to these other guys, you know? Why, you know, and I discovered this whole other world that I wasn't aware of, so yes, fantastic. Hey, Jeff McElwain's here, the great Jeff McElwain. Wonderful to see you, Jeff. Everyone needs to go and subscribe to Jeff's channel if you haven't already. He's got so many wonderful resources and is such a wonderful guitarist and guitar musical mind in his own right. So great to see you, Jeff. Thanks for joining. Let's do a couple more questions, and then I'll leave you for the day. Let's see. Hey, Nadir. Oh, yeah, sometimes when I switch between guitars frequently, I feel like my playing suffers from it. Do you have the same issue? Great question. A lot of that to me comes down to scale length. You know, jumping between the scale lengths of guitar. For example, if I play this Frank Brothers guitar here, it has a 25-inch scale. So I suppose when I was younger, I was most used to the Gibson scale, the 24 3/4-inch scale. And hey, it's Os Wiesendanger. Hey, Os, great to see you. Wonderful producer and pianist and all-around wonderful musician, Os Wiesendanger. Well, lovely to see you, Os. Scale length. I think my problem was always like going between a Strat and a like a Gibson scale guitar, you know, because a Strat is 25.5-inch scale, and Gibson, of course, has a shorter scale. So for me, I would sort of go between the two of them and feel like I was all of a sudden like, oh dear, the longer scale on the Strat is, well, you know, that's a difficult transition to make. But I think I get better with it these days. But that is definitely a problem I have encountered. Most of the time these days, I either play the Frank Brothers guitar, which is 25-inch scale, and the Ibanez AM153QA, which is 24 3/4-inch scale. So that to me is not that, you know, far apart. So I can transition between the two of them quite easily. So perhaps that might be a solution to think of. Right, let's do a couple more and then I'll see you another time. So before, as I've mentioned earlier, up to 50% off at my website ends tonight. If you're looking to get my How to Practice bundle, mini lesson bundle, or modern soloing bundle, or my transcriptions or albums, up to 50% off ends tonight. And you can get an extra 5% off with the code EXTRA5. So we won't be doing another sale for a while. So if you'd like to check it out, this would be the time. So let's do a couple more questions and then I'll leave you to it. Which are the, okay, hey Adrian, who are your favorite guitarists in NYC? Well, you know, I mean, there are just so many. Of course, Ben Monder, Adam Rogers, Steve Cardenas is such a wonderful guitar player. Who else? So many, too many to mention. I even think Bill Frisell is living in New York again now, which is wonderful. Yeah, countless wonderful guitarists in New York, many of who, well, Jeff McElwain was just tuning in here, and he's a wonderful guitarist in New York that I'm sure you all know very well. Mike Stern, anyone who's set foot in the 55 bar. So I could think of so many more names, and I'm leaving many out, but yes, there are plenty. Jonathan Kreisberg, of course. One more question. Which are the harmonic and melodic resources you think make your sound end up being yours? Now, that's a great question. Which are the harmonic and melodic resources you think you make your sound yours? That's a very that's a very broad spanning question. I think for me, it has been a matter of coming up with melodic motives that I think sound like me, and thus investigating a lot of instances of melodic motives, going all the way through someone like Keith Jarrett, hearing someone like Sonny Rollins using instances of motives, but then also going back to classical music and listening to how motivic development takes place in Bach and other music composed around the same time. And trying to draw as much from that in a motivic sense as I can, and then harmonically drawing a lot from saxophone players and as many harmonically interesting players as possible. So I think I'd probably have to do a whole seminar on that, because it's such a great question, but yes, that is my short answer for today. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I really appreciate your support of my channel. Tips and super chats here on my channel are always appreciated, and as I said, if you want to check out any of my learning resources, albums or transcriptions, up to 50% off at my site ends tonight, and you can get extra 5% off with the code extra5. So let me play a bit more for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you. I'll see you very soon, and we'll do it again. Thanks, everyone. Take care.